For as long as anyone could remember, the people of Raven's Hollow feared the church bell. It hung high above the village in an ancient stone tower, blackened by centuries of wind and rain. No one knew exactly how old it was. Some said it had been there before the village itself. Others claimed it had been forged by monks who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. But everyone knew the legend. Whenever the bell rang by itself, someone in the village would die before sunrise. The story had been passed down for generations. Grandparents whispered it to their grandchildren. Parents warned their children never to go near the bell tower. And every villager knew the names of those who had died after hearing its haunting sound. For 300 years, the bell had remained silent. Until the night, everything changed. A violent storm swept across Raven's Hollow. Thunder shook the windows. Rain lashed against rooftops. The narrow village streets stood empty as families gathered indoors around their fireplaces. 13-year-old Thomas sat near a window, watching flashes of lightning illuminate the dark forest surrounding the village. Then it happened. Sound echoed across the valley. Deep, ancient, unmistakable. Thomas froze. The storm seemed to fall silent for a moment. Then came another ring. His mother gasped. His father dropped the cup he was holding. The entire village heard it. The bell had rung. The curse had returned. That night, nobody slept. Candles burned in every home. Families sat together, waiting for morning, waiting to learn who would die. But when dawn arrived, something strange happened. Everyone was alive. The villagers were confused. The curse had never failed before. Some celebrated. Others insisted the death had merely been delayed. The village elder declared it a false alarm. People returned to their daily routines. By afternoon, laughter could once again be heard in the streets. It seemed the nightmare was over. Then the next night arrived, and the bell rang again. Windows were locked, doors were barred, children were ordered to stay indoors. Yet once again, sunrise came, and no one died. Now the village was divided. Some believed the curse had ended. Others feared something worse was happening. Thomas belonged to the second group. Something felt wrong, very wrong. Over the following days, strange events began occurring throughout Raven's Hollow. A farmer reported that 3 sheep had vanished from a fenced field. No tracks, no broken fence, nothing. A baker claimed he heard footsteps moving around his shop after midnight. When he investigated, nobody was there. A young girl swore she saw a tall figure standing beside the cemetery gates during a foggy evening. When she pointed it out, the figure disappeared. Most adults dismissed the stories, but the stories kept growing. And every few nights, the bell rang. The sound always came after sunset, always when darkness covered the village, and always without explanation. Thomas couldn't stop thinking about it. One evening, he visited the village library. It was a dusty place, rarely used by anyone except the school teacher. He searched through old records and forgotten books. Hours passed. Then he found something. A newspaper article nearly 100 years old. The headline read, "Bell rings twice before village tragedy." The article described mysterious disappearances that had happened before a series of deaths. Thomas's heart raced. Disappearances, not deaths, just like now. The next day he returned, and the day after that. Eventually, he discovered a collection of journals written by former church caretakers. One entry caught his attention. It was faded and difficult to read, yet one sentence remained clear. The bell does not announce death. It announces awakening. Thomas stared at the words. Awakening? What did that mean? Before he could continue reading, Several pages had been torn out. Someone had deliberately removed them. That night, the bell rang again. This time, Thomas made a decision. He would find out the truth himself. Near midnight, he slipped out of his house. The village was silent. Moonlight spilled across empty streets. The church tower loomed above him. Its shadow stretched across the ground like a giant hand. Thomas quietly entered through a side door. The church was cold and dark. His lantern cast long, trembling shadows. Carefully, he climbed the narrow spiral staircase leading toward the bell tower. Each step creaked beneath his feet. Finally, he reached the top. The bell hung motionless, ancient, massive. Covered in strange symbols, Thomas approached, slowly. Then he noticed something. The rope wasn't attached. The bell had no mechanism to ring. Yet somehow, it had been ringing for days. A chill ran through his body. Suddenly, a noise echoed below. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Thomas extinguished his lantern. The footsteps moved through the church. Slowly, deliberately. He waited, listening. The sound stopped. Minutes passed. Then silence returned. When Thomas finally descended, nobody was there. But something had changed. The church floor was covered in mud. Fresh mud. As though someone had entered directly from the forest. The following morning, he followed the muddy trail. It led beyond the village, toward the woods. The forest surrounding Raven's Hollow had always frightened people. Dense fog lingered beneath the trees. Even on sunny days, the woods seemed unnaturally dark. Thomas followed the trail deep into the forest. The farther he walked, the quieter everything became. No birds, no insects, nothing. Eventually, he found a circle of ancient stones hidden among the trees. Strange symbols had been carved into them, the same symbols he had seen on the bell. In the center lay a freshly extinguished fire. Someone had been there recently, or something. Then he heard a branch snap behind him. Thomas spun around. Nothing. His breathing quickened. Another sound, this time to his left. Again, nothing. Then, movement. A tall, dark shape slipped between the trees. Thomas caught only a glimpse, but it was enough. The figure was impossibly tall, at least 8 feet high, and unnaturally thin. He ran. Branches whipped against his face. Roots nearly tripped him. He didn't stop until he reached the village. That night he couldn't sleep. The image haunted him. The figure, the symbols, the bell, all connected somehow. Days passed. The disappearances increased. Livestock vanished. Tools went missing. Entire sheds appeared to have been searched during the night. Fear consumed Raven's Hollow. People began carrying lanterns after sunset. Others refused to leave their homes. Then, one evening, a villager disappeared. An elderly woodsman named Arthur failed to return home. Search parties looked for him throughout the night. They found only his lantern and strange footprints surrounding it. The bell rang before dawn. The village panicked. Whatever was happening was no longer a legend. It was real. Determined to uncover the truth, Thomas returned to the church. This time, he searched beneath the altar. After hours of searching, he discovered a hidden compartment. Inside was an ancient journal wrapped in cloth. Unlike the others, this one was complete. The author had been a priest, and what Thomas read changed everything. The legend was wrong, terribly wrong. For centuries, the villagers had believed the bell predicted death, but that was never its purpose. The bell was a warning. Long ago, before Raven's Hollow existed, a man named Hollow lived in the valley. He had founded the settlement. People trusted him, followed him, respected him, until one winter, food became scarce, fear spread, and Hollow made a terrible choice. To save himself, he betrayed the people who depended on him. Many died. When the survivors discovered the truth, they cursed him. According to the journal, Hollow vanished into the forest. But the curse transformed him, neither alive nor dead, neither man nor spirit, something in between, the Hollow Man. Whenever he stirred from his endless wandering, the bell rang, not to announce death, but to warn the village. Thomas finally understood. The creature wasn't coming. It was already here. That night, the bell rang continuously. Sound echoed across the valley without stopping. Villagers rushed into the streets. Panic erupted. Then a scream pierced the darkness. Everyone turned. At the edge of the forest stood a towering figure. Thin, twisted, motionless. The Hollow Man. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the figure stepped forward. The crowd scattered. Chaos exploded across Raven's Hollow. Yet Thomas remained frozen. The creature wasn't attacking. It wasn't chasing anyone. It simply stood there. The Hollow Man spoke. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping across stone. I remember. The village fell silent. I remember what they did. Thomas realized the creature wasn't driven by hunger or violence. It was driven by betrayal. The truth buried for centuries. The lies passed down through generations. The village elder stepped forward, trembling. Then he confessed. The journal was right. The founders had hidden the truth. Not to protect the village, but to protect their ancestors' reputations. The Hollow Man listened. The entire village listened. Its twisted form began to fade, its monstrous shape slowly becoming human once more. Finally, the elder spoke the last words. We remember the truth. The valley became silent. The Hollow Man looked toward the church bell. Then he smiled and disappeared. A powerful wind swept across Raven's Hollow. The church bell rang one final time. Not as a warning, not as a curse, but as a farewell. When morning arrived, the fog that had covered the valley for generations was gone. The forest seemed brighter. The air felt lighter. The curse had ended. Years later, Thomas would become the village historian. Whenever children asked about the bell tower, he told them the real story. Not the story of a monster, but the story of what happens when people bury the truth. Because sometimes the most dangerous ghosts are not creatures lurking in the dark. Sometimes they are the lies we leave behind. And sometimes the only way to silence them is to finally tell the truth.